All right, well, thank you all for coming. It's a great pleasure to see so many people here, especially since the Red Sox are playing. But you'll all be home, in good time to see most of the game. My name is Nicholas Boyd. I'm the president of the Tufts Republicans, and the Tufts Republicans are very pleased to be able to present this event to you tonight in cooperation with the Article 8 Coalition. It's our hope that tonight you'll be presented with a new perspective on an issue you've heard a lot about at Tufts, gay marriage and issues relating to homosexuality in general. And hopefully this perspective will be one that differs from the norm at Tufts. I've been told this event is very controversial, and I think that indicates to me how necessary it is that we hold it. If the views you hear tonight are shocking to you or seem unusual, then I think that's an indication of the fact that you haven't been exposed to them, not that they're unusual. Most Americans, after all, share our concerns about these issues, and I think it's important that we talk about them, and most people should agree that issues of these sort need to be discussed, and it's not a good idea to exclude some views just because they're deemed unpopular, as some of these may be at Tufts. Tonight's format will consist of presentations by each of our speakers, basically 15 to 20-minute presentations. After that, we'll take questions from the audience, and at this point, I want to ask you all to turn off your cell phones just so that doesn't interrupt our event. So I'm now very honored to introduce our speakers tonight, starting with Brian Camenker. He is the founder and president of both the Parents' Rights Coalition in Massachusetts and the Article 8 Alliance. The Article 8 Alliance is a citizens coalition working to overturn the unconstitutional and illegitimate same-sex marriages, or the same-sex marriage that was promoted by the ruling of 2003. And their goal is to sorry about the microphone. Their goal is to remove the judges that basically enforce this upon Massachusetts. He wrote the parental notification law that was passed in 1996. It was signed by former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld. And the law allows parents to opt their children out of sexually explicit content in their classes in schools. Our next speaker in the middle here is Dr. John Diggs. He's an internist from South Hadley, Massachusetts. Dr. Diggs is a graduate of the Buffalo School of Medicine and Haverford College. And he authored a widely quoted paper available online that discusses the health risks of gay sex. You can download it for free. His medical training coincided with the recognition of the AIDS epidemic, and he currently treats a wide variety of diseases, including AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases. His expertise in these areas is recognized nationally and internationally, and he's appeared on TV, The O'Reilly Factor. He's debated the president of the American Medical Association, so he's certainly recognized as an expert on these matters. And finally, over here we've got James Lafferty. He's president of the Policy Communications Group. This is a political public relations counseling firm in Alexandria, Virginia. He was the communications director for Congressman Tom DeLay in the early 90s. He served in various presidential appointments under President Reagan. And he's also an award-winning newspaper reporter and wire service reporter. He's been working in Massachusetts since the original petition drive for a marriage amendment to the Constitution here since 2002. So I'm certainly very proud that we could bring these speakers to you tonight to present hopefully some new views on gay marriage, related issues. And with that, I'm very proud to hand it over to Brian here, who will get us started.
Thanks, Neil. It's great of you guys to be here when the Red Sox are playing, and I'm glad to be here. We don't. I'll bring it up. Okay. This is only the second time that I've spoken to a college group. About a month ago, we were at Boston College, and it came off pretty well. But we've really started to realize that things have changed a lot since I was in college, and the availability of both sides of an issue isn't the same as it used to be. I went to college in the early 70s, the height of the Vietnam War. It was a real wild time, but I don't ever recall a speech, and all kinds of people came to talk who were very controversial. I don't recall that police ever had to be there, or that there was ever the idea that there might be disruptions or anything like that. And in fact, I don't recall in college ever that there was a topic that was considered that you couldn't talk about both sides of it. Unfortunately, things seem to have changed a little bit, and it's too bad. And so you know, that's why we're here tonight. Some of my own background. I was raised in a small town in the South. About the time I went to high school, about the time when schools became integrated. There had been one black school in the whole county and several white schools, and the blacks basically lived in a small area, and they integrated the schools in the late 1960s, and I remember that period of time very well. One thing that I remember about it was how peaceful it actually was, despite, you know, a lot of the stories about how things went on around the rest of the country. I mean, I lived in a town where the Ku Klux Klan actually held outdoor meetings not too far, maybe a mile or so outside the town. And, you know, race was possibly a very explosive issue, but I remember that you know, nothing, you know, you never had to force the issue on people because it was a natural thing. I also remember that I was in somewhat of an interesting position like I am now, because every one of the high schools was asked to have one of the students be part of what was called a biracial committee to work with a committee of black pastors on how they could smooth things out. And I arranged to have myself, my own high school's representative to that. And, you know, I lived in a town where a lot of the people, including my own stepfather, were, you know, members of the, what do they call it, the Sons of the Confederacy. It was, the South was a very real thing. About a year after I graduated from high school, they had a black homecoming king, and a year after that, they had a black homecoming queen. And I remember, one of the things that I remember very vividly is that when groups have to use force to get their position across, when they have to use intimidation, when they have to use lies, something is very wrong. You know, because what happened then is nobody had to do those kinds of things. There was a certain naturalness about it, and you never had to have screaming matches to prove your point if you were on the side that I was on. On the other side, they did that a lot. There was you know, a lot of political correctness, if you will say so. And I learned to have a distrust for groups who could not push their position except by intimidation or lies or those kinds of things. And I'm very sad to see those things happening. I'm also sad to see that in the homosexual movement itself, a lot of that, you know, has been going on. There's, you know, the fact that you cannot say what you know, you cannot bring the other side of the question in public without a lot of physical and emotional harassment that happens to you. And again, there is something very wrong about a group or an organization that feels that it must do that, because in my own case, if something is right, then it is not necessary. Now, you know, going back to my own college experience, if they had had something like this take place, you know, I was thinking, suppose, you know, in 1971, that somebody had signs around saying they were going to have this show, this kind of a discussion. I think nobody would have shown up, because, you know, nobody would have been interested in it. They would have found the subject matter a little bit distasteful or maybe even disgusting, and nobody would have thought of protesting or anything like that. That isn't to say that there were not people in my college and around me who participated in homosexual or those kinds of activities, but I think that everybody had an understanding, a more understanding today of what the real nature of those are than we're given now. we're given a sort of a whitewashed, politically correct idea of what homosexuality is all about and what its roots are and everything else. People understood that these were people, that people who were involved with that were deeply troubled people and often had things in their own lives that these were a symptom of, and you take the movement now where they call it gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, that these various things that people do are symptoms of other things going on in their own lives, maybe from their past, and some of them are very tragic. And if we deal with things that way, that we'll really understand what the root of all of this is, and that the fact that it's a political movement, and that this political movement has tried to ingratiate himself and meld itself with legitimate movements like the civil rights movement and other movements like that is really a shame, because it's a lie. It really has nothing to do with the civil rights movement. There's really no such thing as gay people. There are people who are involved with behaviors for all kinds of different reasons. And as I said, the proof of that is what is transgender versus bisexual versus any of the other things, or go to any gay pride parade and you will see people doing things which you don't want kids around. Open up any gay newspaper, open up gay windows, or go to any gay bookstore, and you will see a whole series of behaviors which are discussed, from spanking to urination to all of these that are discussed in a rather scholarly way, seriously discussed. And you have to wonder, if you take a look at this whole thing objectively, is what is going on in people's lives and people's background and people's minds that they would even talk about these things seriously, especially as a political movement. I don't think a lot of people stop and think about that. And I think that's something that we need to stop and think about. And as I said, the most dangerous part about this is that it's become a political movement. In the early 1900s, the idea that somebody could become an ex-drunk was considered ridiculous. You were drunk. And when Alcoholics Anonymous started to become popular, people thought it was all quackery. It was this idea that through some kind of religious experience and through this 12-step process, you could stop being what you naturally seem to be, as a drunk. And there was a lot of incredible resistance and laughter about this whole idea of Alcoholics Anonymous. Luckily, alcoholics did not have a political movement, and a lot of people are working through that, although I don't think people ever stop becoming alcoholics, and they claim, in fact, that nobody ever does, but a lot of people are helped. When you bring up that same thing in regards to various homosexual behaviors, not only are you laughed at, you're lucky if you're just laughed at. You're treated with incredible harassment. Terrible things are said about you. You're called bigoted. You're called racist. You're called all kinds of things for simply wanting to bring forth an idea. And I'm here to say that I hope that that you guys will be able to see through a lot of this and to see some of the various speakers and things people have to say. So that's basically what I have to say. I want to say that Dr. Diggs is somebody that I really admire a lot. He's done a tremendous amount of research in this field, and I think that he's going to be somebody that you'll find is very interesting to hear. Neil, were you going to introduce him?
No, sure. Let's just have Dr. Diggs take over.
Thank you.
Excuse me for one moment.